So a wide variety of new material has been released, and there is a lot to catch up on since I was kinda decommissioned in the past weeks. The new making of has dropped, and we have to talk. Let's not babble our lifetime away. Anchors away! This time, there are a lot of new perspectives on stuff we have already seen, but also tons of new stuff that I actually cannot really allocate, which either means that it is in fact a new location, or I am just too stupid to see what place is actually shown. Either way, I think it is fair to say that Alkimia has come a long way, and it seems that every new promotional material that comes out shows off more improvements compared to the past trailers and screenshots, and that means they take advice and criticism still to heart. Alright, starting off, we see a ruined tower, and my best guess is that this is the one near Cavalon's hut. While the bridge seems to be made of stone, the original was a mere wooden footbridge, this could still make sense since the surroundings would pretty much fit into the general area between Old Camp and New Camp. After a brief look at the ruins of the monastery during rain, we get an interesting view on Aiden's hut, also located inside the small canyon between the new and the old camp. Aiden, the hunter of the rogues, seems to have gotten a little upgrade to his very bare-bones shack, a cozy shelter under a rock ledge. We can make out some locations that we have already seen, but one stands out: the location of a focus stone. We can clearly see some architecture surrounding it, and trying to pinpoint its exact location is a bit hard, but my best guesses are either the mountain fortress or the ruined monastery we saw earlier. In the next shot, we observe a man dressed in the high robes of the Brotherhood, Iberion in his personal sanctuary deep in the temple in the swamps. Very interesting are the murals on the walls. A long time ago, I speculated that the temple was built by the culture of Jarkandar, but its origins were meant to be Orcish, and this shot confirms it. We can make out Orcish faces in the bottom and the top, but the real juicy meat here is the relievo in the middle. It shows a throne with a humanoid figure sitting on it, guarded by two different figures. The one sitting on the throne looks very human to me, but the guards, due to their hunch, seem more orcish and brutish in nature. This would have quite some implications about human-orc relations. I am doubtful about the statement since they are only hunching over because they hold something in their hands, a stone tablet or a scroll. A very intriguing shot that leaves a lot of room for speculation, but let's carry on. Here we can take a look at a god instructing others, training them to fight. This might be Scorpio, who seeks refuge at Cavalon's in Chapter 4. Later on we see another angle of this place, but I am sure that this is in fact a ruined building in the western castle of the old camp, which serves as a training ground. We can see some targets for practice, just like back in the day, but this time around, they show the silhouette of what seems to be an orc. This means they are well aware of the orcish enclave and the threat that they might pose. The next shot shows a stone golem in what seems to be a very old building. Stalactites have already grown on the ceiling, emphasizing the age of this place. The golem, which, by the way, looks very menacing, is pretty much true to the version we know and love. I like that it is partially overgrown with foliage and still evokes the feeling of the original. The creature seems to have been suspended by some kind of contraption, and this leads me to the following conclusion. This place is obviously part of the mountain fortress, and while exploring the area in the original, we find a hidden room with skeletons. It is very possible that whoever dwelled here made an effort to learn the summoning of creatures, a mage of sorts. The fortress always gave me an occult vibe, and it would make totally sense that once upon a time, a summoner made this place his home to practice his arts, and maybe this man was no other than Count Bergmar himself, who once ruled over the Valley of Mines and resided in this very place. Stone golems, skeletons, and even a demon once we return in Gothic 2 are home to this place. I think it is safe to say that we are in for a treat exploring these ruins. Here we have some mercenaries training on a platform, taught probably by the weapon master Cord, fighting ramshackle practice dummies. The path behind them, hidden in the shadows, probably leads to the hollow where the free mine is located. This makes me wonder if the plateau above the cave is still accessible. It would be a shame if it is not. Now we take another look at the House of the Fire Mages, with Choristo studying scriptures and another mage practicing the arcane arts, holding a white glowing stone, maybe a runestone? But those look different in the material we saw last year, so it might be just something else. Again, we see the light piercing the stained glass window in the background, scattering in all sorts of colors. Next up is a look at a female inmate scrubbing the ground. Is this Velaya in Gomez's abode, or is it a different woman located in the room where we find Bartholo? Interestingly enough, she seems to have a short sword on her waist. Don't the guards and Orbarons care about their safety, giving a slave that lives right next to them a weapon? I'm not sure what to make of it. Also, they obviously changed her clothes. Gone are the days of gooning inside the house of the Orbarons, but maybe she will still take a bath once in a while, if you know what I'm saying. Following up is another shot of a guard's training, maybe even in the same ruined building on the western side of the castle. I love how he swings the weapon and shakes his head right after, as if he's not really satisfied with the execution of his swings. This really bumps up the immersive aspect of the game. Little movements and gestures go a long way. Here we see the hero running towards the mountain fortress. Archways and underpasses seem to have been added, and it really gives this place a sense of importance and a glimpse of its past grandeur. The following shot shows us mercenaries hanging out in some type of bar with a digger in the background. The first thing coming to mind is Silas's tavern on the lake in the new camp, but it might be something different, which I will touch on later on. Ah, Torres, member of the Magicians of Fire. I love that his Spanish-sounding name is getting emphasized by his new look, which reminds me of Mediterranean phenotypes. And here is our first look at Karim, the mercenary who only came into the old camp to kiss Gomez's ass. The man looks very intimidating and battle-seasoned, just like the next person, Butch. This minor NPC was meant to be involved in a little quest you got from Wedge, another rogue in the new camp, but it didn't make it into the final game. I really dig his look, but I must say, I wish Lee would look a bit more like him, more mature, with sharp eyes and such. Sly looks quite okay, and I have to say that I've never really paid too much attention to his original, but Kronos looks really good. I like that the mages don't look so unkempt like the rest of the inhabitants in the barrier. It gives them a certain grace and status. A lesser Templar practicing his moves, and my man is rocking a nice beard. I get the impression that they worked on the faces, facial and regular hairstyles even more, which is absolutely fantastic. The next shot is definitely the inside of Xardus' old tower. The lower levels obviously flooded, but I wonder if we are able to explore the upper levels as well. Okay, so this place was shown to us a while ago, albeit a different angle, and I failed to make out where this is supposed to be, but now I am sure that this is Quentin's camp up in the northern mountains. The next scenes do show off more details of this area. Quite some new buildings have been added, and I think that we even see some type of small pub or tavern, which we possibly saw a shot of earlier. Now to something very, very interesting, which was teased by Kai Rosenkrantz after the Gamescom last year. A snowy area. I don't have a clue where this might be, but I think it is safe to say that this is definitely up in the southern or western mountains. We can see the faint flickering of a torch in the distance, which might lead to a cave or indicates a camp. I get really hyped seeing new unseen biomes added to the game, so wow, good job. Just like the locations before, the next picture might also be a new area. A cave filled with goblins and some wooden structures that seem to be of human nature. In the distance we can make out a larger building illuminated by some torches. This frame really gives off some Arx Fatalis vibes, and I'm all up for it. The question remains, where is this exactly? Your guess is as good as mine, but it could be inside the abandoned mine, even though it was meant to be infested with mine crawlers. Going underground, we are now below the old camp. The dusty cells are filled with rotten corpses and with a living prisoner who seems to be part of the new camp, judging by the armor. The atmosphere is thick, and it seems that they have expanded the dungeons quite a bit. They also talk about a hidden passage that leads into the cells, and I wonder if they will finally use that opening in the castle wall, which can be found above the marketplace near Fisk's shop. And we have finally arrived in the orc territory. Statues of two orcs fighting in a dimly lit interior with grotesque orc visages decorating the walls. These faces are definitely very similar to those that we saw in the temple in the swamp, further strengthening the connection between the swamp and the green furs. Here we get our first really good look at the orcs, and I have to say that once more we can see changes in their appearance. People might not still be 100% on board with the design, but the fact that the devs have changed and touched upon their looks again is just another confirmation that the team is taking the criticism to heart. The orcs have a healthy amount of variety in looks when it comes to their armor and their faces, which the original lacked severely. I really love this shot of an orc wearing this crude mask. It looks heavily inspired by African masks used in tribal rituals. Some orcs, I guess these are the shamans, wear chest pieces inspired by Native American cultures. The blending and mixing of different real-life tribal civilizations' aesthetics is very fitting for the orcish culture. Another cool addition is the orc blacksmith wearing some type of face protection, which looks phenomenal. The orcs also retain their original arched back, which gives them this kind of hunchback-like appearance. All in all, I am very much pleased with their redesign, and their feral nature is still a big part of their appearance. We also get our first look at the new lockpicking minigame. It seems to retain some of the original spirit in terms of moving the lockpick to the left and the right, but adding another dimension, up and down as well. After a few shots of exploring during the night, which looks absolutely incredible, we get a look at a building in the swamp that we saw before. I wasn't sure what it was back then, but it seems that this is the training platform for the Templars. Now we get a different angle of the tavern on the lake in the new camp, and I am a bit sad that the old Adobe style got changed into something more regular, but I think the intention behind this change might be to diversify the architecture in the camp, which I totally understand. The little details, the water lilies, the balcony, the lamps hanging on the ropes are adding quite a lot to the atmosphere. The following shots are probably taken in Quentin's camp again. The swamp camp common area, high up in the mountain fortress, and in an orcish underground place, probably the cemetery, and a cave which is half submerged in water, which looks absolutely stunning with the light being reflected by the water. The fallen tower of the old camp is a proper two-story abode with a balcony now. Maybe the shadows will finally hang around this place after a hard day's work. The sound of the Brotherhood playing in the background evokes so much nostalgia, and Kai did an awesome job at recreating it. The hollowed out tree reminds me a lot of mangroves, and once again it fits the location just perfectly. Up next is a place that we have already seen once, the Stonehenge. Since there is only one of those in the Valley of Mines in the original, this might be the one in the spooky forest with the crypt in which we find the focus with Milton. I cannot see the entrance to the crypt, but this area might have been expanded, and I'm all up for it. Here we can see an orc mummy in an alcove in the orc graveyard, and the atmosphere is once again on point. Xardis' tower, the old citadel, and then a quick peek into a hut in the swamp camp. Again, we have a lot of small details that blend together so nicely. I especially love those lanterns and the natural light seeping into the abode. While Kai is explaining his way of composing and capturing the feeling of a certain area, we can see a Baal preaching to some novices. Lanterns and even some type of a wind chime can be seen here, and an absolute massive trunk of a tree in the background. This is peak Brotherhood. And here is the question of the decade. Is this a warg or an orc dog? Those fangs surely look incredibly sharp. And in the background, we can clearly see the river that flows through the eastern part of the colony right before the big forest. So this is an absolute atmospherical shot. The hero running along a very vast, almost tropical shore. I guess this is the beach behind the swamp camp. The green and hazy air is a dead giveaway. This clip is so amazing, and once again they are adding a somewhat different biome to the colony. The enclave of the orcs from a different angle. It just feels right that this area is way more fortified, with new levels added to the top and orcish towers in the distance. It looks really awesome, but I still want that underground orc city. Pretty please. So the next scene is quite mysterious to me. I cannot say where this is supposed to be, but it could be located on the upper levels of the monastery, which in the original was devoid of anything. The broken pillars seem ancient and they adorn an overgrown path leading up to a stone arch in the distance. Even though this area looks quite deserted, the burning braziers in the background suggest the opposite. If you have any idea, please let me know. Here is another look at Quentin's camp, and it seems like the small mine which was buried by some rocks in the original is, in fact, making a return. There is even a rogue carrying some goods. Maybe the cave is used as some type of storage room. The rice fields are really massive, and this new perspective really shows. Lefty's little water boy quest might be a real pain in the ass now, another good reason to slam him into the dirt. So maybe it is just me, but I think they did a very good job with Homer. I can really see the similarities between his new look and the original. And now we also know who will teach us how to navigate underwater a little better. Just for one learning point, you can now hold your breath just a little longer. What a deal! Afterwards, we see the hero diving into a shipwreck, and that implies that the shores will be even more explorable. The original was very limited due to the barrier roasting you as soon as you swam too far out. Reinhard is talking about more ways to explore, and I'm totally up for it. Even though diving was a bit of a hassle back in the original, it was always fun to check out the bodies of water, and I hope that this kind of rich exploration, climbing, diving and crouching will be carried over into future titles. Interaction underwater is another very big improvement. Forging a weapon will have the same steps as in the original, which is an absolute must, but I am not sure about the UI handholding. The act of creating a sword worked for the most part without any pop-up window in the past, so I could definitely go without it, but I guess it's needed when you are able to craft more than one type of sword, so I give it a pass. But I'd rather not have it outright tell me which step I have to work on next. An NPC should explain the process, and after that, I want to be left on my own devices. In the next frame, we can see a High Templar, possibly Gornaran, guarding the camp from swamp sharks. The scenery looks astonishing, and it seems that the area is expanded quite a bit, since you can look very far into the distance. This shot is also amazing. It is hard to make out details, but there is a fire mage sitting on a bench under a canopy of foliage. This might be a new area inside the castle of the old camp, probably right next to the house of the magicians. It might be a place of contemplation for the order to rest and meditate. And here is another underground area, and this time I am sure that we are inside the free mine, the Adobe-style building to the left being a good indicator. Now let's talk a bit about what is actually said in this making of. Plot holes, contradictions, and unlogic. These things are getting fixed in the remake, but what exactly are those? Well, there are quite some inconsistencies. Let's have a quick glance at a few. The 13th Mage dilemma, which in the end happened due to a miscommunication in the team. The Circle of Water and Fire being separate orders and didn't split once inside the colony. Iberion's death and the reveal of the true nature of the Sleeper. Korangar saying that he will lead Templars into the Orc graveyard. How Kor Kolom and the novices get past the Orcs into the Orc temple. And the exact age of the barrier, etc. Reinhard mentions that the solution to these things are changed to fit into the context, which is a viable approach. The developers have a franchise to look back on and build and add to the new lore, and that makes me very curious how it will turn out in the end. Another good point that is made is that they want to create a world that seems to continue to live on, even in the absence of the player character. Back in the day they did quite a good job, but with all the technical advancements in the past years, I wonder how much more is possible now. Will raids on the old camp happen while we are out doing our own business? Will arena fights happen without us? Only time will tell. The key thing they understand, Gothic was a breathing and living world even in the absence of the player. You feel like a nobody, slowly climbing the ranks and eventually becoming a core part of the plot. The beauty of Gothic is that you feel so replaceable, so unimportant at the very start. This is also a huge contribution to the general atmosphere. One little thing they got wrong though are the Wandering Templars. Well, at 2 PM, Gorna Drak and his trusty assistant will start their journey at Korkalom's hut and make their way to the old mine in the original game. When talking about the voice acting, Reinhard is absolutely right. Compared to the German, Polish and Russian dub, the English one is very weak. It surely has its moments, but in general, it just doesn't live up to the other languages. Bringing it more in line with those is very good news. Talking about cut content obviously made me really happy. Thank you, Timur. I have talked so much about those things on this channel, it is basically one of the core elements I always address when speaking about the remake. Seeing Quentin's camp and the other locations that I cannot really identify makes my heart skip a beat. This is what a proper remake should do, realizing the original vision of the game and adding things that make sense all in the context of the game and lore. Reinhard Pollice talks about a more in-depth interaction with the orcs, something that was planned to be in the game way before it got released. I reported on this after last year's Gamescom, and it seems that it has, in fact, become a reality that we will have more interactions with them, which are not limited to Urshak and Tarok. The whole situation with the orcs is also looking very promising. The original plan back before Gothic was released was to learn the orcish language and to communicate with them. Back on Gamescom, Reinhard told me that the interaction won't go that far, but that makes it even more intriguing. Then we got some insight into the economy and how they want to regulate amassing vast riches early on. Traders will have evolving inventories and generate ore on the side without our interaction. The system was quite broken in Gothic, the original version, and could be abused very easily, which in return made you very powerful early on. Delaying this financial power shift into the later chapters is the only way to balance the game and to keep you from exploiting it in the very start. Kai gave us an insight into his mentality when working on the music, and I think even with those more basic tracks back in the day, he really is a messenger of emotions. I cannot wait to listen to the old tracks, cleaned up, refurbished and expanded on. But once again, I must say that the sound design and soundtrack is the least of my worries. So, this was an absolute banger of a making of, giving a good amount of insight into the mindset of the devs and hinting at a lot of things to come, old and new. I hope you had a good time and I wish you guys a good one. I will see you in the next one. Awaken.